for me, communication is everything. Even if it is, I don't have any words right now.
Right.
I need a moment.
Yeah.
Communication is everything, because at least then someone has something to do with that. They can do something. They're like, okay, well, they need a moment.
Right.
I
think communicating, and this is what me and my partner started doing, communicating how you feel without making yourself or another person wrong, like that has helped us immensely. Like I feel like I have nothing to say, but I'm really feeling a lot of emotion right now. Hi, and welcome back to the Lifestyle Design Podcast. I am so excited to be your host, and I'm so excited to share my guest today, y'all. When we talk about lifestyle design, it's all about going through the cycles of healing, of building, and of thriving. And my guest today has written a book, a whole book, on thriving. Yes, that's the title, On Thriving. And so I just want to get into where we met. So that's where we're going to start, because she is incredible. Brandi. Hi. Hi. Isn't she gorgeous, y'all? First of all, when you walked up, I was just like, it reminded me of the first day I think I met you.
Wow. Okay.
And I don't know if you remember where we met, but I think I remember where we met for the first time.
Okay.
And I think it was at the Moms in Color.
Yes.
That you put on, and it was an incredible group of moms.
Yes.
And when I saw you, you were just gliding through the room, sprinkling magic everywhere. And when you walked up to me, I had this, just walked in, sprinkling love, y'all. Sprinkling love. And that's still how I feel. Every time I see you, I'm just like, you just remind me of a fairy of love. With your presence, your essence, your smile, your glow, everything. It just lights any room that you're in. So welcome to the party.
Thank you. I don't even know how to feel right now, other than just like I said, it feels like a verbal hug. You are a warm hug. That's what you are. She gives the best hugs, by the way. Like the best hugs. It's like that hug that you didn't know you needed. And then just squeeze and you're like, oh yeah, that's what I needed today.
Let's all give ourselves a hug. We all need those hugs, right?
It's like, yeah, that's what I needed today. I needed that. So I love you. I think you're awesome.
Thank you. I just think this is perfect. So many serendipitous things have been happening in my life. I have surrendered to going with divine guidance every single day of my life.
Yeah.
Every single minute, every single hour. And so when I came, like, we hadn't planned this yet.
No.
And it just magically happened. And it is right on time.
I'm so excited.
It is right on time. And let me tell you why. So when I look at these chapters in your book, the first question is something we started to get in before, and I'm like, I'm asking you on the podcast. So I'm not going to tell you the chapter I'm most excited about.
Okay.
But I want you to share what is your favorite chapter, and what was the hardest chapter to write?
My favorite chapter, or I'll even say section, because I feel like it's, when you write a book, you know how it all gets jumbled and moved around.
Yeah.
But my favorite section is the one on grief. It was also the hardest one to write. And it was hard for multiple reasons. One, I wanted to normalize grief.
Yeah.
I wanted to normalize death and the end of things. And I would start over and start over and start over and write like, that ain't it. And I throw it away. But after I got it out of my head and birthed it, it was immediately, I was like, this is my favorite section to read, because it made me feel as if, even in grief that I've experienced in the past, that I'm not alone.
Right.
Because I know someone else has experienced the same thing.
Absolutely.
And so for me, that was my favorite and also my hardest one to write.
Wow. Why was it so hard for you to?
Because I wanted to, like, for example, there's a part where I talk about postpartum grief. And it wasn't just like postpartum having a baby, but even just the postpartum of, you know, you birth something, you birth, you know, your mountaintop experience. And afterward, there's this grief that happens because you're so excited about it, but there's something that you've probably lost along the way. You know, you get a new job, there's a loss of possibly time allotted, you know, that you had before. You know, you get the book deal. There is a loss of, oh, I had all this, like, you know, time. And now I don't. Or you get a new relationship and it's this loss possibly of something there. And so I wanted to normalize this idea that you can't have both, like, joy and also a little bit of sadness, or that you can't be, I say, you know, blissed out and also buried alive.
Blissed out and buried alive, y'all.
Right? Like, you can have both. And if you acknowledge both, it doesn't take away from the bliss or the gratitude.
Right.
It just means that you're human and this is a lot.
It's a lot.
It's a lot.
I was most intrigued by that chapter.
Yeah, that for me was it was really hard to write because I kept, like, attempting. And then finally I got it. I finally got it. I was like, yeah, this is it. There we go. I'm good. I'm going to take a nap now.
Yes. Yes. Thank you.
Nap time.
I love that. And I love it for multiple reasons. But one of the main reasons is because I celebrate my 1-year anniversary to my fiance.
Congrats.
Thank you.
Congrats.
But in April, his sister transitioned and they were close.
Yeah.
So here we are, exactly like you said, in this blissful relationship.
Yeah.
We both, you know, finding each other.
Yeah.
And then and I got an opportunity to meet her and love her and enjoy her.
Yeah.
And then this transition.
Yeah.
And then experiencing grief. So having this joy, this bliss, and then being buried alive. Like, when you talk about duality and how to hold space for both. So can you share a little bit about how you've learned to hold space for both and navigate? Because I know it's not any one way, but can you share a little bit about your personal way that you found it possible to maintain your sanity when experiencing such complex emotions?
Yeah, I mean, it's quite simple for me. I just got tired of fighting.
Yeah.
Like, I don't like fighting. And I don't like fighting with myself either.
Yeah.
Like, I don't like it.
Yeah.
Like, and I felt that the more that I would ignore one feeling to prioritize another, the more I felt discontent. I didn't feel better. So it's like I was trying to, like, stifle this emotion, and it's like, it's not actually working.
Yeah.
It's not. So my logic started to kick in. It was like, girl, it stands to reason that maybe you might want to let both have their day in the sun.
Yeah.
You might want to do that because one is not, you're not a bad person by acknowledging both.
Exactly.
So I just got tired of fighting it. I got tired of fighting it because it wasn't making me feel better.
Right. And it's not real.
No, it's not.
And if you're not accepting it, then you're stuffing it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And what I like to remind myself is every day we have lightness and we have darkness.
Yeah.
Every single day. Sometimes longer, sometimes shorter.
Yeah.
But that's what I remind myself when experiencing grief.
Yeah.
That it's okay. Like, nature shows us every day to be in grief, to acknowledge the darkness and the hard parts and the sad parts is part of even enjoying the light.
It's part of it.
Yeah.
It's part of it. I mean, even in the book, I talk about mushrooms and how, you know, I give this symbolism of how mushrooms, they're so wise that they break down the dead. Yeah. And in that breaking down, they grow new life. And it's like they understand that for new things to come, some things we have to let go of and we must let them die.
Right.
And so, I mean, it's like that thing also, you know, just saying, you know, what we bury, you know, it grows.
Yeah.
You know, so it's like, just let it be. It's okay. It's okay.
Right.
Like, it won't hurt us.
Yeah.
It's not going to hurt us. And I think that's the part, too, that I wanted to let people really be okay with, is that you're going to be okay. That the grief will not bury you.
Right.
It's not going to bury you. It's not going to crush you. Just let it be. Let it be.
What was the hardest thing for you to grieve or kind of get over or get through? Even if it's still lingering. Like,
Oh my
what's the
gosh.
hardest?
I mean, I've had quite a few things.
Yeah.
I mean, the death of my mother. That was hard. And I thought that because we were so close, I was like, oh, I don't know why I thought this. This doesn't make sense. But in my head, it made sense at the time. I was like, oh, because there was no unfinished business. There was no weirdness. But we're tight. We're cool.
Right.
I'm going to be fine. No, it actually made it worse. I missed her even more. And I grieved hard. It was really, really hard. I had to grieve my childhood. You know, I talk about in the book the experience of my childhood.
Right.
And I had to grieve that. And it wasn't until I was grown that I actually looked back and I was like, yeah, childhood wasn't that great.
Right.
That wasn't that fun.
Yeah.
I should probably like grieve that because there's nothing I can do to undo it. So I need to grieve it. Yeah, I mean, there's been plenty.
I like that concept of grieving hard things because sometimes we can ruminate and replay it in our mind. But if we just grieve it and let it go, that can be a fuller release.
Exactly.
I like that.
Yeah, it's just like let it, but I think it's people are afraid. And I get it. I was there. I was absolutely there. I remember, I can only like liken it to like this ocean.
Yeah.
Right? And you're going into the ocean. You see this big tidal wave that's coming at you. And your natural instinct is to run.
Right.
Like run.
Right.
And that's how I was with grief for a very long time. Like run, just afraid that it was going to drown me. And I mean, one of the things that you hear all the time is just ride it.
Yeah.
Ride the wave.
Ride the wave.
Ride the wave.
Just ride it.
And just know that it's not going to overtake you.
Yeah.
Like the storm and the waves are there to carry you. They're not there to break you. Just let them carry you. And so the more that I began to just, all right, we just going to ride this. We going to get a raft and a boat and get some chips.
Some chips and salsa.
And we going to sit in this boat here and just ride this wave.
Yeah.
That for me, it wasn't easier, but it was a lot better than what I was doing, which was running.
Right. So. And when you're running, what does that look like? Because I know some people are listening. Okay, what am I actually doing? Am I grieving or am I running?
Yeah, it looks like grieving, running from grief looks like, let me become busier. Thinking that you can just busy it away. I can substitute it. So that looks like, oh, let me just like get into another relationship. Let me fill my days with things and stuff and people so I don't have to feel it. It can look like anything that feels like a substitution, you know? And I do talk about give yourself what you need, but there's a difference between taking care and just numbing.
Right.
And so I usually ask people to really think about, like, what are you avoiding? And what's the worst that can happen?
Right.
Like, if you feel it, what's the worst? The worst thing that can happen.
You got to feel it to heal it.
Yeah, and oftentimes it's not as bad as we think. I mean, yeah, you're going to cry and you might scream, you might yell, but maybe that's the exact thing that you need.
I teach that.
Yeah.
I teach screaming, yelling, crying. I really feel like emoting helps get that energy out of the body.
Absolutely it does. Yeah. Absolutely. And so I think the way when it looks like when you're running, it looks like all of those things, so avoid that.
Right. To really experiencing the pain that comes with grief.
Yeah. And I think a lot of times too, we have this idea, at least I did, that to scream, to yell equates to something else in our past experiences when it's not the same. I don't know if that makes sense. You know?
It does, because some people feel like, well, I don't want to be out of control.
Right.
I don't want people to think something's wrong with me. Well, something is wrong.
Something is wrong.
Right. And
something's very wrong.
If it's not wrong on the outside, it's wrong on the inside.
And you need to get it out.
And you need to get it out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Something is wrong.
Yeah, something's wrong. We are not okay.
We are not okay.
The kids are not okay.
They're not okay.
The adults are not okay. And we have to be okay with being not okay and understand, even if it's every day, what do you need to release?
Yeah.
Yell, scream, write, sing,
do
dance.
all of those things. Because that's the other thing too. Kids do it.
Yeah, all the kids are brilliant.
They scream.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. And then we, as the adults, we're like, don't do that. Don't do that.
Right.
And it's like, no, they're trying to get their need met.
Exactly.
And we need to follow suit. I'm not saying, throw a tantrum in the grocery store.
Go in the closet.
But go in the closet.
Tantrum in the closet.
Like really, let it out.
Yeah.
Let it out, because you'll be so much better when you do that.
It's so good.
Yeah.
So good.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we could stay on grief for a long time, but there's some other chapters I'm really excited about. And so I was reading through it. I'm gonna give y'all some of the chapters too, so you have something to look forward to.
Oh my goodness.
Partnership as a great teacher.
Yeah.
I was really excited about that because I went a long time. It's like, you know what? I'm just gonna, I'm gonna do life differently. Maybe I won't have a life partner. Maybe I won't get married. And then I was like, you know what? No.
Yeah.
When I really thought about, I do want a partner, and I do want to do life in this way. And so I went through this healing process, got my sacred woman from Queen of Fua,
Gotta do it.
healed my womb, and really got intentional. And I did a lot of healing work with myself, my family.
Yeah.
And then I attracted a partner.
Yeah.
And honey, when the healing started all over. And I was like, so when I read
that's
that,
what it does.
Partnership, such a great reflection, such a great teacher. Can you talk a little bit about this chapter and what you want the reader to really walk away with?
I think I would want the reader to, one, dismantle everything they thought they knew about partnership. So this idea that you make me whole, they don't. And I don't make you whole either. You make me happy.
That part.
They don't.
Nope.
You make you happy. Right? Everyone else is just icing.
Icing on the cake. Icing on the cake. You're my icing, babe.
You are beautiful icing.
Yes.
But you're icing.
Yes.
I make me happy.
Yes.
This idea that, I say this in there that, and even in regards to not even just partnership, but our friendships, platonic, business relationships, whatever, that people can love you and still hurt you. That is a very sobering fact.
Yes.
Because this idea that people who love you will never hurt you.
It's unrealistic.
It's unrealistic. And it doesn't mean stay in a situation where people just keep on hurting you. I'm not saying that.
Right.
But I am saying that when you have two people from two different backgrounds, two ways of communicating, two parenting relationships of their own parents, how they were raised, how they were talked to, how they were treated, all of that, it's unrealistic.
Right.
You might hurt my feelings.
Right.
And it's up to me to communicate and say, hey.
Right. That part.
Talk to me nice.
That part. That communication part. Like, we need to live there for a little bit, because how important, and you have you have, how many years have you been with your husband, partner?
We've been together for 22 years, but we've been married for 18.
That's incredible.
So we've been together longer, almost over half of our lives.
That's amazing.
Thus far.
I think communication is one of the most important things in partnership. What would you say?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's easier said than done because, again, communication styles, you know. But it's important. You know, I know for me, one of my biggest, it was a toxic trait, was when I was upset or, you know, triggered or whatever, I would turtle. I would go in my little shell.
Yeah.
I'm like,
Bye.
like, that's all you got. Like, we're done. Like, and I would not come out until I felt safe.
Right.
And here's the thing, there's compassion that can be held for that. You know, a lot of times, you know, people who do that, or the silent treatment, that's another one that people love to do. You know, oftentimes people who do that, there's a study that shows that when they were kids, they probably were, when they had a hard time, they were forced to figure it out on their own. So actually leaning into people and saying, hey, I'm having a really hard time with whatever's happening is really hard for them. It's not even like a malicious thing. It's just hard. So for me, you know, unlearning, like, one, I don't have to figure out this alone. And if I need a moment, just say I need a moment.
Right.
But turtling, not okay.
Right.
That just leaves the person in the cold.
Just hanging.
Just like, I don't even know what to do. What do I do with my hands? I don't know. I don't know. What are we doing?
Yeah.
You know? So, you know, for me, communication is everything.
Yeah.
Even if it is, I don't have any words right now.
Right.
I need a moment.
Yeah.
Communication is everything, because at least then someone has something to do with that. They can do something. They're like, okay, well, they need a moment.
Right.
You know?
I think communicating, and this is what me and my partner started doing, communicating how you feel without making yourself or another person wrong, like that has helped us immensely. Like, I feel like I have nothing to say, but I'm really feeling a lot of emotion right now.
Exactly.
Or I feel angry. But sometimes you don't even know what you're feeling. You're just feeling triggered. Right? And to be able to communicate, I feel triggered.
I feel triggered.
I feel like I want to be alone. I feel like I need some like space. Like that is communicating.
It's communicating.
Yeah, and I feel like when you can do that, you can actually set the foundation for a healthy relationship.
Exactly. It's everything.
Yeah.
I mean, we're not mind readers.
No.
And it's a lot that goes in the middle of that. And that's with any relationship that when there's no communication, there's a lot of assumptions that can be made. There's a lot of like whole conversations and dialogue in your head.
Right.
That's like going on. You know, and it's like you're telling them what you would have said and da-da-da-da-da, all in your head. Not to them. Not to them.
And they're not thinking anything in alignment with what you were saying.
No, not at all. Not at all. So,
what do you feel like, if you can share, what do you think like has been the hardest thing that you've had to get through in your relationship?
In my relationship, I mean, I write about it in the book. My husband and I, I mean, like I said, we've been together since 2001.
That's incredible.
That's a very long time.
Magical. That's a long time.
That's a very long time, you know? And we were kids when we got together.
Yeah.
And we had a lot of our own trauma that we didn't realize until we were grown-ups. And so, you know, we dealt with infidelity. Yeah. That happened. And that betrayal. For me, that betrayal, feeling that betrayal of someone that I thought was my person, you know? Yeah. So getting through that and talking through that, and then also too, and I talk about it in the book, but also not focusing in on the relationship and like immediately being like, let's fix that now. So our oldest son knew, and for a while I regretted it. I regretted sharing with him, and I totally did it. Full transparency, I was hurt. Again, hurt. Yeah. And, you know, I regretted it. However, there's something that really beautiful that came out of it is because of the work that John did and the work that he saw his mom do. because he saw both of us doing this work,
Right.
he was able to see that. And it's funny because I talked to this therapist about it, and they were like, he's able to see reconciliation
Right.
and what it really looks like for people. That sometimes people do things that don't feel okay and are not okay.
Right.
And that doesn't mean that that's the end. Sometimes there can be reconciliation.
Right. And I think that is what's so rare.
Yes.
And I think, even when I started to really notice, okay, yeah, a lot of people separate, but seeing more couples and understanding
Yeah.
how they sit together, why they stayed together,
Yeah.
how they work through everything, it's just as powerful
It's just
as
as
knowing
powerful.
why people know I had to separate, know I had
Yeah.
to go, know
Yeah.
I couldn't.
Yeah.
I feel like having stories about both of those situations are
Yeah.
so important.
Yeah.
But most times we only see like, oh no, we had to get a divorce.
Yeah.
because-
Yeah. And here's the thing. I think, if it were a situation where I saw there was no shift
Right.
and he wasn't getting he wasn't healing
Right.
and figuring out his stuff, then that would have been the end.
Right.
But
Yeah.
I saw a person really sit and address the root.
Right.
And for me, that gave me pause. And it was like, oh, okay,
Right.
we'll see. We'll see.
Let's see. Oh,
I'm glad I went and I saw.
yeah.
Glad I saw.
It's so powerful. I think the most powerful part is just that you both were doing the work.
Yes.
And in a union, when you decide to become a life partner with someone, like you commit to doing the work together.
Yes.
And even when it takes individual work to come back together, I feel like that's just so powerful and so
Yeah.
profound.
Yeah.
And when it comes to your children, that's kind of the next part. Like,
Yeah.
how has it been, because how old are your children now?
Oh my gosh. So Jax is 17 tomorrow.
Oh my goodness. Happy birthday, Jack.
Happy birthday, Jax. He's 17. Jedi is 8, and then Jupiter's 5.
They're
It's-
growing so fast.
I know. We have all the ages. All the ages.
One thing that I noticed, everyone knows this about you because you're a doula.
Yeah.
So how has it been really ingraining the principles that you feel is important into your children? And what things have you done to just
Yeah.
make sure that they are well in such a very interesting time in the world?
I have had to, there's a lot of conversations
Yeah.
in our house. We talk a lot.
Mm-hmm.
There's also this acknowledgement that I'm raising 3 boys,
Right.
3 black boys
Yes.
in this world.
Mm-hmm.
And what are the men that I want to raise? It's that too.
Right.
Like what does that look like? And so I kind of parent from there.
Okay.
I talk about how in the book I say, they're going to be adults longer than they're going to be children.
Right.
So really the focus should be raising adults and raising thriving adults.
Right.
So we have a lot of critical thinking. As much as they can. I mean,
Right.
Jupiter is always unhinged. Always. He's 5. So he's always like doing the most.
Right.
But Jax, who's about to be out in the world
Right.
like next year, now our parenting looks like stepping back. It looks like, well, what do you think about that?
Right.
And also letting him answer that. And if it's not the right answer, quote unquote, taking a deep breath and not judging him for it.
Right.
Like not, well, you should know. Actually, they may not know.
Right.
They may not know. There's actually a lot that children don't know.
Right.
Like, spoiler alert, kids don't know things.
Right.
They know nothing.
And you want them to know,
Everything.
figure it out.
Right.
But sometimes they're going to do all the things that are not great for them.
Yeah.
And how do you hold space for that? Especially at a mom who just wants to protect.
Well, I have this saying that I say all the time, and it's so true. Kids are so childish. They are so childish.
Right,
Like,
right.
they are childish. Like, and if you sit with that,
Yeah.
like, there are things that seem so clear to us that are not clear to them.
Right.
That frontal cortex,
Right.
which has to do with decision making, is not fully developed until like age 25. Wow. their amygdala, which is all emotion, is actually like larger. And that's where all of their decisions are from. It's all emotion. And so holding compassion for that and not judging them, although there are times where I'm like, so what day 5 of no shower?
Right.
I'm not going to say which kid that was. I'm not going to say which one. I'm not going to say which one. I'm just going to say the one that I don't have to bathe anymore.
Right.
Day 4, really? That's what we're doing? But again, it's that frontal cortex and holding space.
Right.
You know, they don't have it all figured out.
Right.
You know, and for us, you know, John and I, we want to be a safe space for them to land. The world is hard.
Right.
So let us be soft.
Right.
You know?
And how much has to be structured? Because, you know, when it comes to structured and planning and also gentle parenting, can you talk a little bit about your parenting style and how you raise them and how it's going?
Yeah. So it's funny because, you know, I've come from the South.
Right.
I'm from the South. So it's like we came from a space, and my mom was, I think, pretty evolved for the most part, you know, like she would talk to me and have like eye conversations and go have a good cry if you need to have a good cry, like really ahead of her time.
Right.
However, they totally believed in spanking, you know, spare the rod, spoil the child, you know. And for us, that's something that we don't do, which sounds, I know, for my Southern, you know, relatives, they might be like, really? Well, how do you get them to do what you want them to do? And it's like, I actually don't want them to do what I want them to do. I want them to think.
Right.
I want them to think. And I want them to question authority.
Right.
I want them to ask questions because I don't want them to go along with everything if it doesn't feel right with them.
Right.
Now, we do encourage them to disagree respectfully.
Right.
Right? But if I say something or your dad says something that doesn't make sense to you, ask a question. Like, we don't want to raise humans that they just go along to get along.
Right.
Because some things you need to push back on.
Right.
Some things you need to say, that's not really, that doesn't feel right to me. That doesn't feel fair to me.
Right.
So we encourage a lot of question asking. And how is it going? It is hard.
Yeah.
It is very hard. I'm not going to lie to you and say, oh, they are just little angels. You know, we gave them all this freedom and they're just so sweet.
Right.
No, there are times where I'm like, John, see, we could stop this right now if we just go old school on them real quick.
Snatch them up real quick.
Snatch them up real quick. You know, like we could just solve this. But it's like our goal is not to just raise obedient children.
Right.
We want to raise adults that are critical thinkers, that do things because they have integrity, not because mama and daddy are watching.
Right.
Or because what happens when they leave the house. What happens?
Right.
You know, it's like, and then also if we're honest, like, how did that work out for us? I don't know if you were spanked or not, but like, how did that work out? Like, did it really make you better or did it make you more afraid?
Right. For me, it made me more afraid.
Yeah.
And it made me fearful of disappointing someone.
Yes.
So it made me a people pleaser.
Yes.
Like, I have to do what you say or I'm going to get punished.
Exactly.
So like you said, it takes away critical thinking because even though you're feeling it's not right, you go along with it to keep the peace.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. Right.
And then also too, it teaches our kids don't make mistakes.
Right.
Because punishment.
Right.
And we all know that sometimes, most of the times, mistakes are just experiments and we learn.
We learn from mistakes.
We learn from mistakes.
Versus getting punished for mistakes. Yeah.
Right. And that's our kind of way of dealing with it. It's like, okay, so what did we learn here? When you jumped off the couch, what did we learn?
Right.
When you landed on your butt, what did you learn?
Exactly.
You know, instead of like scooping them up. Like,
exactly.
That's the thing. It's like it doesn't really do anything for us.
I think that's so powerful. I never really thought about it that way. Like, I love the analogy of jumping off the couch because you jump off a place that's too high, it's going to hurt.
Yeah.
If it's not too high, you'll be fine.
Yeah, exactly.
But when you get punished, it can stop you from ever jumping off of anything. Ever. And maybe that child was going to be a stunt person, you know?
Exactly.
But now they're not jumping because they are like, well, jumping is the wrong thing to do. I'm afraid I'm going to
Yeah.
get punished, so that's
Yeah.
the wrong thing to do. Versus the exploration of deciding
Yes.
with this one thing of jumping off things, where are my limits?
What are my limits?
What are my limits? And
Yeah.
you can't find your limits, what you said earlier, critical thinking. You
Yes.
can't have and nurture critical thinking if you're always getting punished
And if you're afraid.
and if you're afraid of
Yeah.
to make a mistake.
Yeah, because I've even seen my 5-year-old, I've seen that little boy. He's going to be a linebacker or something. He's like this little peanut, and he's just like, "Rrr." He's really sturdy.
Right.
And, I've seen him jump off of things, and sometimes he makes it, sometimes he don't. And, but I've seen him also use critical thinking and say, okay, let me push this way.
Right.
So that way if it happens again, I have a soft space to land.
Right.
And I'd rather him do that and use thinking and
Right.
critical thinking than, oh, I'm afraid to ever jump again. Because if we get into metaphors, I want him to be curious.
Right.
I want him to like, oh, let me try that,
Right. I love it.
so.
What does thriving mean to you?
What does thriving mean to me? It means to gather all of the resources that you have, all of the tools that you have, and use them where you eventually break out of surviving and you grow. You're able to grow in whatever space
Right.
that you are put in. I love that. Whatever space.
I love that. And what does thriving look like for you as we enter the end of Q4 and go into 2024? What does thriving look like for you individually? Just Brandi? And then what does it look like for your family?
Thriving for me as an individual in Q4, as we're ending the year, it looks like being brave, letting things wash over me, not running from them, letting all the verbal hugs meet me, and not like, screaming, like, I don't know, can I accept this? Like,
Right.
no, accept it.
Right.
Like, accept it, lean into it, let it just literally like bathe in it.
Right.
That's what thriving looks like for me, because I really struggle with that naturally. So it's letting myself just like, all right, okay, I'm just gonna sit here and let it just wash.
Wash over you.
Yeah. For my family, it looks like just happiness. Like our kids, and we are so happy. Our family, we are so happy. And I mean that in the most like even elementary of words. Happy. We're just happy.
Right.
Just continued happiness and continued joy, and just really being in a space, like being present. Present. Because I think for us, it's 5 of us.
Right.
And so if I'm not getting a kid in their shoes or gathering another kid, like, come here, I gotta, okay, did you, I want to be present.
Yeah.
And so I think this year is just like, okay, yes, there's a lot going on. Life is not slowing down. It's getting busier and busier and busier. But even in that busy, like breathing
Right.
and being present. So that's what it looks like, I think, for our families. Just, yeah, a lot of good.
I love it. What has been like you think the most powerful tool that you've given your children when it comes to self-regulation or wellness?
Communicate what you need. Communicate what you need. I think for me growing up, that was a really hard thing.
Right.
Communicating what I needed. I always felt like either I'm being a burden or I don't know, it's too much. Is that too much? I don't know. Is it too much? Yeah. I never want my kids to feel like they're too much, because they're not.
Right.
They're just the right amount
Just the right
of
amount.
who they are.
Oh,
And I want them to carry that in every space that they enter, that I am exactly who I'm supposed to be. I am exactly the right amount of who I'm supposed to be. I am not too much for my people. Some people it might be too much for it, and you may not be my people.
They might not be my people. I don't know whose people you are.
You may not be my people. You know? I want them to know that they're not too much and that they can ask for exactly what they need.
That's powerful.
Yeah.
So powerful.
I want that for them.
And you just do such a good job of just embodying getting your needs met.
Thank you. It's been some work.
Right.
It's been work.
Yeah.
It has not been easy. And I have to literally like talk to myself and say, stop. Like give that mother in the church look like
that part.
Like, look,
Yeah.
you're not too much.
Yeah.
You're not too much. Ask for what you need. Ask for
Oh,
what you need.
that's a bar right there. I'm gonna take that with me. Ask for what you need.
Ask for what you need.
So powerful, because if you don't ask, how are you gonna get it?
Yeah, and it's funny because we joke about it at home. Me and my husband, we'll say, "Use your big girl words,
right?
Use your big boy words," and it's so funny, but like it's true. Like,
right?
You know, for my kids, I say, "Use your brave voice," and they'll use it.
I love it.
You know,
that's the only way to encourage people to actually live full out is to ask for what you need.
Ask for what you
Not
need.
only from people, but also from the universe.
Yes.
Like,
ask for what you need.
How do you need to be supported?
Yep. Exactly. Say it.
Speaking of how you need to be supported,
yes.
When it comes to the book, what do you want people? What is your message to people as they approach the book?
That you can get out of surviving. You don't have to continue to just survive. You can thrive.
Right.
That if you find yourself in this moment in a space where it just feels like it is going to crush you, that it's not.
Right.
It's not. And that you're going to be okay.
Right.
Because I've been through some stuff.
Right, and you have the 4 stages, right?
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about those?
Yeah. So I open up the book with thriving in relationships. So we dive into first thriving in relationship with ourselves.
Right.
And then with others, so partnership, and then also reparenting ourselves.
Yes.
Which is a big part of that relationship with ourselves. It's not a do-over, because some things are never going to be undone, but more so giving ourselves right now what we need.
Right.
You know? And then we go into thriving while navigating, mental health. So I talk about, my experience with, while figuring out mental health post-trauma, finding home post-trauma, and then grief, thriving in grief. And we talked about that. And then lastly, thriving while being othered, which is, we all have a seat at that table at some point, where we are the only something.
Right. Interviewing you because I wanted to know the evolution. Yeah. Because I think a lot of people feel like it's unattainable. Not that they can be you, but to get to this higher level of consciousness.
It's attainable for everyone.
Yeah.
In bite-sized pieces. So the idea is, you set yourself up for an insight, then you have to stabilize and integrate.